call on the program leader of for our opening remarks, the program leader of the ERDT, and currently the Dean of the UP Diliman College of Engineering, Professor Ferdinand Manigdel.
To our esteemed guests, speakers, Director Chen Fu Chin of the Artificial Intelligence for Intelligent Manufacturing Systems Research Center and Ministry of Science and Technology in Taiwan, President and Chief Executive Officer of Hungry Workhorse Consulting, Dr. Reynaldo Logto Jr., Dr. William Torres of the National Academy of Science and Technology, Ms. Ria Brando of the Medtronic leading business strategic transformations, automation, and digitalization, Department of Science and Technology officials headed by Secretary Fortunato de la Peña and Undersecretary Rowena Cristina Guevara, Science and Technology Graduate Scholarship Advisory Committee headed by Undersecretary Renato Solidum Jr. and Dr. Joseph Bio of Science and Education Institute. Committee members, Dr. Reynaldo Ebora, Dr. Enrico Paringit, Dr. Jaime Montoya, Dr. Marieta Sumagaysay, Dr. Fabian Deirit, Dr. Lorna Minya, Director Corina Frances Cabanilla, Director Richard Emerson Ballester, Dr. Danilo Lacheca, and Mr. Arsenio Barcelona. University Consortium officials, Dr. Rafael Guerrero of Ateneo de Manila University, Dr. Chudi Saiko of the Central Luzon State University, Dr. Jonathan Donka of the De La Salle University, Dr. Jonathan Salvacion of Mapua University, Dr. Noel Estoperes of the Mindanao State University Iligan Institute of Technology, Dr. Rosana Marie Amongo of UP Los Baños, Dr. Rosana Ferolin of the University of San Carlos, and our very own Professor Gerald Jo Denoga of UP Diliman, Deputy Director Albert Marino, Dr. Dante Silva, Dr. Brian Alamani, organizing committee members, ERDT staff and participants, a pleasant afternoon to all. We are truly honored to have a wide range of industry experts and leaders, researchers, and policymakers for this event. The Engineering Research and Development for Technology, or ERDT, has been holding annual congresses to tailor brilliant initiatives into multi-sectoral solutions that uplift the social conditions of our fellow Filipinos and advance our technological and industrial capacity. Holding a congress is one of the most effective methods of unifying experts from different fields. This can lead us to sustain collaborations and projects. Today, we will be holding a very decisive event. It was never a stretch to say that a single event can determine the course of the future. What makes the 9th ERDT Congress unique from previous congresses is the trust on digital transformation and how we can meet the dramatic needs of society given our persisting health situation. This year's Congress will tie ideas and culminate recommendations that can become the foundation of deeper digital integration in the years to come. Our honeymoon period with the pandemic has passed. We are now learning to live with the technological changes it brought us. In this regard, Digital transformation is here to stay, and it's moving at a rapid pace. The urgency to meet changes is not merely a reaction to the effects of the pandemic, as if we've been left with no other choice but to adjust. Instead, we have always been preparing for more profound digital transformation. We had anticipated digital transformation even before COVID-19 took its course. In fact, we have been gearing the various sectors towards it. The pandemic, however, urged us to step the game up and hasten our technological integration. I'm sure everyone felt the impact of digitalization as it had become the mechanism of various activities, from the delivery of consumable goods to the electronic migration of business processes. However, we are at the cusp of an even more remarkable digital transformation. Hence, the aim of the 9th ERDT Congress is timely and proactive. Thank you for being in this event that aims to provide in-depth analysis of how engineering, research, and development can fully realize digital transformation. Technology, data, process, and organizational change capacity are the cornerstone of digital transformation. Filipinos spend a lot of time online. Because of our immersion in online activities, we have also become the ideal market for telco investments. The Philippines was included in the top 10 of the International Institute for Management Development World Digital Competitiveness Ranking 2020. The greater use of technology will demand a greater capacity to mitigate a plethora of issues. Technological integration will also require more innovation. It will introduce new data management and process transformation strategies, primarily when the private to ours require more innovation. It will introduce new data management and process transformation strategies, primarily when the private and public sectors operate with a large amount of information. Deeper digital integration will push organizational change strategies and business continuity plans to become more feasible and adapted to our current conditions, such as the organization's role in a virtual no-contact setting. Tackling technology, data, process, and organizational change prepares the private and the public sector for the best and the worst that could come with digital transformation. This enables us to anticipate all potential challenges and urgently to create the necessary support for essential public services such as healthcare and education. Building a solid foundation today is essential to avoid a wide technological gap in the digital-savvy global village. A digital divide can create more profound social inequality and cause the country to lag. According to the World Bank, digital transformation is necessary to overcome the effects of COVID-19 and eradicate poverty in the country by 2040. This Congress is an affirmation of our commitment to address urgent challenges with long-term and sustainable solutions. The design of this Congress suit an interdisciplinary discourse in digital transformation. In the plenary, our esteemed guest will provide in-depth discussions on the pillars of digital transformation. We are privileged with the opportunity to gain insights from their discussions. We are also looking forward to the e-poster competition, the presentations where the participants would put their best foot forward, and the parallel sessions where our panelists can share recent developments and recommendations. Once again, my warmest greetings to everyone in the 9th ERDT Congress. Good luck and mabuhay kayong lahat.
Thank you very much. Maraming salamat po, Dean Ferdy. So we will be starting our program this afternoon. So for our first speaker, so the program flows in this manner. So we will be having 4 talks, and then after that we will be having an open forum which will be moderated by Dr. Dante Silva. So our first speaker, we are very honored to have Dr. Chen Fu Chen, who is a chair professor in the Department of Industrial Engineering and Engineering Management at the National Tsinghua University in Taiwan. He's also a Micron Chair Professor sponsored by Micron Technology United States. Professor Chen is the convener of the Industrial Engineering and Management Program of Taiwan's Ministry of Science and Technology. He's also the Director of Artificial Intelligence for Intelligent Manufacturing Systems, AIMS Research Center, which is one of the 4 national AI centers sponsored by MOST. For this afternoon, he will be discussing this topic on technology, particularly on introducing innovation and dealing with technical debt. And with that, let us welcome our first speaker, Dr. Chen Fu Chen. Professor?
Okay, thank you very much. Please allow me to share my slide. Okay, thank you very much. Can you all see the slide? Okay.
Yes, Professor.
Yes, thank you. I will quickly start it. Firstly, this is truly my honor and great pleasure. Although I cannot join you in Philippines, but I still missing my last trip to Philippines. And today, please allow me to share some of the experience, especially in Taiwan, for digital transformation for small and medium-sized enterprise by humanize those intelligent technology. Firstly, we know we have one Earth, and the Philippines is very close to Taiwan. And based on these statistics, we know this Earth is not enough for everyone in the Earth living in the same living standards. If we want to live like people in the United States, we need 5 Earths. If we want to live like China, we need 2.2. And obviously, we only have 1 Earth, and this Earth is actually the resource is limited, and we are also facing a lot of problems for sustainability and the climate change, etc. And the technology, on one hand, will improve our life, but the other hand, also enlarge the gap between people, between those rich and poor, those who can utilize technology to empower themselves, and those to be replaced by robotics or AI, etc. You may argue that those jobs, they are tedious jobs that human beings don't want. But if you check the recent article in MIT Technology Review, even Goldman Sachs, they used to hire about 600 financial trader, but those, and each of them starting with $500,000 US annual income as the start, but they were replaced by AI. And then, a lot of trading now are using AI or program rather than human beings. So you can see things like that has been changing our life. And for manufacturing, we know manufacturing create a lot of jobs. For example, in Taiwan, we still have a strong manufacturing segment. And even in leading countries, they realize the investment in the manufacturing, their return on investment is actually larger. So countries like the United States or Germany, they want to promote manufacturing return to the United States or such as Industry 4.0. And because of this, those national strategy proposed by leading country as well as the new technology such as AI, big data, almost every nation they have similar strategy to address this smart manufacturing or Industry 4.0, including Taiwan, including Philippines, as well as Asian countries. In Taiwan, our Ministry of Science and Technology, they established 4 national AI centers, and now I'm in charge of one of them located in Hsinchu National Tsinghua University. We are very close to our science park, but the center is actually coordinated researcher from different universities, just like your esteemed EDRT, EDSTs try to coordinate those leading universities in Philippines. We are jointly try to address related issue in Taiwan. So what is this impact for Industry 4.0? One of my arguments is that these 4 phases, they are not continuously. We know that the first industrial revolution is enabled by the invention or improvement of a steam power machine. Then we have this digital era because of the invention of transistor and the integrated circuits. So for 1 and 3, they are very obviously enabling technology from 0 to 1. But you know, this ongoing Industry 4.0, if we check our Industry 2.0, you find in Wikipedia, firstly, it took about 80 years. So it is a long time for continuous improvement or technological revolution here and there, including management or industrial engineering related to mass production or production line. And such production line, even nowadays, still very important in a lot of electronic manufacturing service industry. Those big EMS companies such as Foxconn or the other company of electronic, they are still doing a lot of production line. But in the region of Bosch in Germany, there is no such mass production. Instead, they are more about mass personalization because every customer wants to different service. So you can see in this region, there's no traditional assembly line or the AMH system, such as in semiconductor manufacturing fab. They use AGV, they use a lot of intelligent technology so that the lot size could be reduced, but still profitable. Because it should be profitable, then this model can be sustained. So when the lot size become reduced, it will also impact the global supply chain or manufacturing network. So in Harvard Business Review, they even claim the supply chain management will be dead because the traditional is focused on productivity, return to scale so that the cost can be reduced. But the new paradigm is actually more about agile flexibility, and the supply chain may not be dead immediately, but it will be shortened, fragmented. Then it will create a lot of operational research or optimization of the resource allocation for the corporate. And of course, it will also create a lot of risk for the supply chain participant, those companies in ASEAN, because we are part of the supply chain, but we are facing the dynamic fluctuation of the global supply chain because this paradigm shift. And one of my friends, Professor Charles Fine in MIT, he's now actually in Malaysia for a school MIT established there. Anyway, his strategy talking about so-called vertical integration and the horizontal modularization. They are like double helix, which means you keep changing along this industry structure, vertical versus horizontal. We have seen it in Taiwan, although most of the electronic industry, they are horizontal modularization, but you can see some industry, they are vertical integrate. But this changing along the time actually create some gap. The gap, just like I mentioned, the global supply chain network. And on the other hand, those gaps also create opportunity for research as well as for innovation or even for new business model. So if and semiconductor industry, of course, their clock speed is very fast because driven by so-called Moore's law every year or every 2 years, they change a generation. So from a company called TSMC, they are focused on wafer foundry. So the supply chain becomes very fragmented, and within this ecosystem, there is so-called design service. And my question is, how can we using this kind of changing and to change the other segment in Taiwan, especially SME, as I just mentioned. And so we realize for this migration, there are 2 dimensions. Actually, one is more about system, one is more about flexible decisional agility. Unfortunately, most of Taiwan's small SME, they are here. They are very flexible. I'm sure a lot of Asian SME has similar characteristics. We are very hardworking, so we are very flexible. But on the other hand, the system level is not very high. We don't have enough capital or financial resources, etc. How can we migrate to the industry 4.0? On one hand, we can adopt a traditional way from the SOP, TQM, lean production system level and to intelligence. And this industry 3.5 I proposed earlier is like a hybrid strategy. You do it 2 ways. On one hand, you do it step by step. But for those low-hanging fruit, you try to adopt the new technology to enable some of the creativity, creative functions. But how can we help them? Just like I mentioned, this supply chain is changing and fragmented. A lot of SME, they don't have resources to recruit talents from our graduate. Most of our graduates, they choose to work in high-tech company. But in Taiwan, we have more than 98% company, they are SME. They are supporting more than 80% of job opportunity. So how can we help them? So I propose an idea called a Dr. Fab. That is analytic as a service, which means we try to collect those analytic job, AI, big data from each individual SME. But so this business is enough to support a very good company with a lot of talents, so that they can provide service, just like a foundry service, as I mentioned earlier. That is actually very successful in Taiwan for semiconductor foundry service. And this was one of the outcome from our project. So our Ministry of Science, they actually have a presentation last year. Even our Vice President, he was there. So anyway, so I'm using this as an example that in Chinese medicine, which we often say that you need to cure a people before the disease happen, which means in semiconductor manufacturing, they call advanced quality control, advanced process control, advanced equipment control. Means before the things get worse, you try to solve the problem. So I probably run out of time, but I have shared my material to organizer, so please feel free to ask them. So I'll just quickly show some example. For example, for the wafer probing task, there's a machine that you need to touch down each of the surface, and this job is fine machinery. So we use big data. We try to collect the data. We develop a system like intelligent solution to help those workers so they can dynamically optimize the parameter setting rather than try and error. And also a lot of job, they need visualization. Usually the ladies worker, they are spending their eye to check it. And we can use AI for defect detection. And in Taiwan, a lot of traditional industry, they are using a lot of NC machine, rely on senior worker. They try to judge the routing. So based on the sensor collect data, we can feedback them. Some of the process may not be needed. Just like we are advisor, we were using checking function to feedback our graduate student that maybe something should be improved. So they will not just receive our correction, they can also learn from it. So this is what we develop and actually save about 8 to 20% of cost. And some of our effort there recently, last year was covered by Nature about how our team lead this effort in Taiwan. And finally, I would like to share last time it's a great pleasure to join NRCP with you, and also meet a lot of good friends in Philippines, including my friend Catherine Raymond. We even try to publish some joint work to address this problem in Filipino, in Taiwan. And there was a APO, Asian Productivity Organization. They also hired me as a chief expert. So I lead the team to including representative from Philippine government to access smart manufacturing for APO member countries. So you can find out it in APO. And this current APO chairman is actually a governor from Vietnam. So we have some top talk earlier. So, and we also try to address the problem like the fundamental objectives. Okay, so the idea is actually try to empower human being like Iron Man rather than like iRobot. So when we say humanize intelligence, is actually try to develop a lot, because we have a lot of SME, and they, like I say, they provide more than 80% of job opportunity in Taiwan. So we want them to be able to migrate just like those high-tech companies. So we use AI solution to help them. So and also develop decision support systems so that they are not just utilize our solution, but they can support their decisions, such as for inventory management, supply chain management. And we also help textile company that is a very traditional textile company. And so we optimize their scheduling, including, because now the textile, the lot size is also reduced. So we try to help them to improve, and with a lot of different interface to support their decision. And we also help them to do this digital transformation, not just provide the solutions. And finally, I used to work for a semiconductor company. At that time, I proposed so-called PDCCCR framework that is published as a case study in Harvard Business School, and call it TSMC way. One of the reasons is Toyota way is for automobile industry, just like industry 2.0 from Henry Ford. And I think the future is more about mass customization, just like a TSMC in Taiwan. So hopefully my sharing and can be as a reference for your kind of attention. Thank you very much. And thank you. Sorry to use some extra time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Tien. Thank you very much for that really informative and inspiring talk. Later during the open forum, we will have our audience interacting with you together with the other participants. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And we now go on to our second speaker for the afternoon. Our second speaker is Dr. William T. Torres, who is recognized as the father of the internet in the Philippines for his significant pioneering contributions in computer and information technology. He authored the National Information Technology Plan, and as chair of the IT Coordinating Council, he was primarily responsible for the harmonization of its multi-sectoral implementation. Dr. Torres is a distinguished professor of Mapua University and also an academician of the National Academy of Science and Technology. And this afternoon, his topic will focus on data, primarily on data lifecycle and proprietary data. Dr. Torres, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. Can somebody tell me that my voice is on?
Yes, it's
Yes.
working.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
Beautiful.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I would like to thank the organizers for having invited me to be part of this Congress. And I would like to discuss, as I have been asked to, the concept of data lifecycle in digital transformation. I take a different perspective on the use of the term digital transformation from the previous speaker. I am looking at organizations and such as companies or enterprises or even project teams, as long as they are big enough to be considered for this concern. Next slide. Next slide, please. Somebody in control? Okay. My perspective has to do with something that is happening in many organizations, including manufacturing organizations. Okay, and I'd like to consider a few highlights regarding this topic, and together with digital ecosystems, they provide a background for what I was supposed to address, and that is the data life cycle. So in the case of data transformation, I'd like us to have at the back of our minds that we are on a journey from something which we have been doing already, a lot already, and we call that digitization. And that's nothing more than converting analog data into digital data, or to push it backwards, manual data transformed into digital data. And then with the developments of technology and advanced usage of ICT in organizations, we are also into the digitalization process. In short, this really means making use of digital data resulting from digitization. You are going to use it for many processes that are done by organizations, including problem solving in various areas that that organization is involved in, as well as in managing the operations of that organization. So that's where I think many of us are already in, but not too in. Okay, we're perhaps at the starting stage. We're just transitioning from digitization to digitalization. We are supposed to be advancing to what we now call digital transformation. And this is nothing more than making use of the digital technologies, okay, which is what was being done in digitization, and combining that with the processes that we have in our organizations. I already mentioned problem solving is a process, decision making is a process, but there are so many other problems where things have to be addressed. And of course, as we all know, we address those things by using data. Okay, so data plays a big role. However, it's not only data. As I indicated in my second bullet, you have to think about the infrastructure, the network, which is available to that organization in terms of interconnecting with everybody, and even with things like computers and machines. And then, of course, we have to be comfortable with managing data. They are virtual, and we want to be sure that we can trust the data is accurate. And of course, we have to look at the data itself. When we say data-driven, it really means much more than just looking at data and then solving problems and making decisions. It's more than that. It's interacting with the data with other people, and of course going through the processes, whatever they're doing in their in their organizations. And of course, applications. There are myriads of applications which can be advanced if we already have digitized data, and we use data to flow from point to point, from many points to many points, and so on, to enable us to address these many applications. Okay, I will speak a little more about the data because that's my assignment, but the other things are mandatory. Okay, the networking, the security, and applications. And finally, just to summarize, what has DX done, or what is hoped for when you use digital transformation at whatever stage you are? And this is speed, faster way of doing things because the data is fast. Latency, when you access something and it takes you minutes or even hours to get it back, that's very high latency. What you want is getting back something that you want in seconds, if not milliseconds. And then, of course, with big data and all these things that are generated, we impact the volume. The digital transformation deals with volumes of data as well as varieties of data. Now, to build up this digital transformation quest, I believe that digital ecosystems is the means. I lost the slide.
Okay, I think we've lost connection. She's already reconnecting.
From your end, I can do it from my end if you want.
Leave. Okay, she's resharing, sir. Okay.
Okay. Well, as I was mentioning, we need to build digital ecosystems. I will define that more precisely later. But the way to a fast and safe and effective journey through digital transformation is by building the digital ecosystems in your organizations. If you are a big organization, then you can have many digital ecosystems in your organization. But if you are SME or even MSME, we need to group together and form an ecosystem so that we can make use of the benefits coming out of digital transformation. And the last point that I will discuss using only 2 slides is really the data life cycle. The concept has changed, and some people don't realize it, but it has changed dramatically. It is causing a lot of problems in what we do in our organizations because the data has changed, and the use of that data, of course, must change. The bullets tell you that files, databases, data warehouse, data lakes, data marts. These are new words to many of us, but they are nothing more than concepts of handling data. Okay? The stages, of course, we know the basic things. We capture the data, even if we have to generate it before we capture it. And then we process it, and then we store it. And then, of course, we do analysis before we can do some useful applications of that data. And finally, to be able to do these things on data, we need to have a different way of managing data. And that's something I cannot take too long to discuss, but it is a necessary thing. Next slide. Okay. This is the transformation that we are talking about earlier. And so we need to move. I think we are still stuck, many of us, at the first level. We're happy already with converting to digital data and then manipulating it by human beings before we move to the next steps. But slowly, digitization has come in. But there's a problem. The speed of your networks, the speed of access, the speed of interacting with each other virtually, this is a hindrance to more successful digitization. And of course, the ideal thing is to reach that level. And even if, click this, even if this is not yet correct, click, next, click. Okay. When people are asked, are you going through digital transformation? And even if they are at the first or the second stage, they will say, yes, we are. But as you already know, this is not yet the mature way of using the word digital transformation. Next slide. So this is my formal definition of digital enterprise ecosystem. Enterprise here means not only organizations and companies, but even attempts at addressing complex problems like waste management, like climate change, like improving the educational system and so on. An interdependent group of enterprises. So enterprises is used in a generic way to cover all of those attempts at addressing big problems. People in those enterprises and customers of those or partners of those enterprises and or things like computers. And these enterprises share standardized digital platforms, such as what we already have on the internet. And the purpose is something that is of mutual benefit to the stakeholders of those enterprises, respective enterprises. So this is something I think that is useful in looking at what we're doing in relation to these definitions. By the way, there are many definitions of digital ecosystems. It depends on the context. Next. Okay. These are my two slides that I will discuss a little bit more in detail. When we speak of data life cycle, data, if you think of it as a real quantity, is captured. It's a virtual quantity, of course. It's captured, and then it's processed, and then it's stored, and then later it will be used, maybe as stored, as what many people do with certain types of data. But sometimes we go through analysis, especially when you're talking about big data. Before you can use it, you have to establish models and machine learning things to be able to make use of that data. Of course, the end point of that data is when it is deleted because no longer useful. And if you're in doubt whether you might be able to use it later or not, you simply store it in an archive. Okay? Now, let me just point out that when you use storage, it is possible to just store directly from capture. Derecho, diba? Files, for example. Or you need to process it first before you want to arrange them by putting labels and so on before you store them, because it might become more useful that way. So it's either capture, storage, and then processing later, or capture, process, and then storage. And then there may still be additional processing, such as what you do when you analyze, especially when you look at big data, or when you in fact look at a set of data that is needed to solve your problems. Okay, this is typical life cycle. But in digital transformation situation, these things must happen very fast. Okay, must happen very fast. Otherwise, it will not be useful. It will not enable you to make decisions on the run or real time or near real time. And of course, this is a problem that our companies are beset with. And you just take a look at what's happening in COVID-19. There's a lot of data that is gathered, but it's late. We only get the totals or a summary, but we cannot get details. Or maybe the data is wrong. We don't know how right it is, the timing and so on. But the thing that I wanted to emphasize is that the speed, right, as I mentioned earlier, latency. Latency technically means if you want to get something from the cloud or from the internet, you must get it quickly. The shorter it is, the better. So latency is a measure of a two-way trip of what you want to get from the internet and when you actually get it. And then, of course, the volume, I already mentioned that this capturing, processing, and storing, these are voluminous sets of data. And we have to deal with it. We need technology to deal with it. So the message I really want to come across on this slide is simply to think that whatever we're doing now in terms of data must be dramatically improved. Otherwise, those things that I mentioned earlier will not happen. Imagine the previous speaker's situation on the role of data there. Internet of Things. The data must flow quicker than your thinking, right? So the speed is important, the volume is important, the variety is important. Different users have different types of use of data. So the last slide simply tells you something that in relation to this slide. Next. Oh, could you just get back the previous slide so that we read the last message? So the data life cycle has to have a different ecosystem, separate from the ecosystem for the other things in your organization. It's the only way you can change the old way of handling data to the new way of handling data. And this is not simple because everything is done virtually, okay? And the last slide, please. So I mentioned this before, you have different aggregations of data, file, database, data warehouse, data lake, data mart. These are to be learned. Perhaps we're at the file database level, but only a few companies in our country make use of the data warehouse properly. And then data lake is even more foreign to us. Data mart is probably also being used, but these are things that we need to learn. And these are things that we need to have ICT support. And by the way, there are many kinds of data, including the basic raw data, structured data, unstructured data. Okay. And then there is this external data, such as when you think of marketing and partners and so on. And internal data, such as what you must keep to yourself in your organization, that is known as proprietary data. This variety of data is what really makes that data life cycle undefinable Okay, because different context requires different data life cycles. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody. Last slide to make it official. Oh, by the way, there's a comment. In a digital enterprise ecosystem, the data may be distributed among several computers and storage memory devices. And this could be on-site or in the cloud. So data is not put in one huge data server or a complex of data servers. It is spread out. Why? Because you want to reduce the latency. You must make the data closer to those who must address problems using the data. Okay? And then some data you probably have to house within your own organization. But why not a lot of data residing in the cloud that you want? You can easily do it, and you can get other people in the ecosystem and outside your ecosystem to benefit from it. With that, I want to thank everyone.
Thank you very much, Dr. Torres, for that really important insight on data lifecycle and how to manage data, which is vital in many of the things that we are doing now. So we'll be moving on with our next speaker. Our third speaker is Mr. Reynaldo Reyes, veteran business executive and entrepreneur with several years of professional experience gained from the information and communication technology industry, where he worked in senior executive roles in companies like Microsoft, IBM, Samsung, Emerson, and Globe Telecom. Mr. Lugto also possesses a successful and extensive experience in digital and cultural transformation engagements as founder and CEO of Hungry Workhorse, a digital and culture transformation consulting firm. For this afternoon, we will focus on process, primarily on incremental process improvement, radical process re-engineering. Sir Ray, the floor is yours.
Thank you for that introduction. Let me share my screen. Let me share my screen. There, can you see my screen now?
Yes, sir, we can see it.
All right, so welcome again. So I will talk about process as domain of digital transformation. And before I do that, let me introduce my company. So we are a digital and culture transformation consulting firm. We do end-to-end transformation methodology. So we have domain expertise in organization development, business process, and enterprise architecture. And we have had clients in various industries in the Philippines and abroad. So we do an end-to-end and methodical digital and culture transformation consulting, seamless integration, and technology capabilities delivery. Now, let me define digital transformation. Again, there's the different ways of defining this, but this is how we define it, especially when we engage with our clients. So we define digital transformation as a set of strategic actions to accelerate business activities, processes, competencies, models to fully leverage the changes and opportunities of digital technologies and their impact in a strategic and prioritized way. Now, this definition has implications. Because it's strategic, then it is the CEO and the board who owns digital transformation. So this is a set of strategies. And when we talk about digital transformation, we divide them into two contexts. So there's dual transformation that we share our clients. So transformation A is repositioning today's business to maximize its resilience. We call this transformation A. And there is transformation B, creating tomorrow's growth engine. And what links A and B are the capabilities linked. These are unique skills and resources that give you an advantage. So it makes sure that A and B are implemented nicely in parallel. To put more details into A and B, so transformation A is repositioning today. This is all about identifying new solutions to existing customers. We call these quick wins. It involves innovating your business model and aggressively implementing this. While transformation B is creating tomorrow, so creating the engine, growth engine of tomorrow by identifying constrained markets and iteratively developing new business models. And again, what links A and B are the unique assets and advantages. Now, just to define the transformation B, which is the end-to-end methodology. So, and this is what we apply in our consulting work. We first revisit the vision and mission of the company to make sure that it is aligned to the environment. We identify new customer personas, and then we map the current business model, how the company creates, delivers, and captures value now. And we map the competitive position of the organization. We map the customer journey of their customers, and we map the employee experience. Now, these three activities will result in a set of strategies and tactics. We call these digital transformation strategies and tactics. And with that, we generate the value proposition and the future business model of the organization. Now we move to my topic. So we move into the enterprise transformation. This is the organization. So before we do that, we engage in organization assessment, business process assessment, people competencies alignment, and then enterprise architecture. Now take note, enterprise architecture covers technology and data, as the previous speakers mentioned. And then we move into execution, the most difficult part, which our fourth speaker will talk about: culture transformation and change management. Now let's drill down on enterprise transformation. We said that it has four components. So we baseline the business process, organization assessment, people competencies and stakeholder alignment, and enterprise architecture. Now I always emphasize that we need to do this, all of these activities, not separate from each other. That's why we created this framework. So this framework shows that all components, organization, people and stakeholder, process, and enterprise architecture, which includes technology and data, are all interconnected. Right? So process is connected to organization, technology is connected to process. Right? So when you change data, when you deal with data, you also deal with process. When you deal with process, you deal with data and technology. In the same manner that when you deal with process changes, it also affects the organization. Now, how do we evaluate the process? So we engage in a business process review. So it involves initial planning. This involves identifying key inputs from process leads and stakeholders, and then preparation. This involves putting together the process materials and process architecture. And then we engage in interviews, workshops, and process probes. We will talk about this later. So we, sometimes we put some probes into the, terminals, PCs of our customers to audit the process. So this involves the process inventory. And we also take into account industry references, business process models from different industries. And then we engage into business process mapping. This is where we compare with best practices and industry expertise. This is where we identify process gaps and opportunities for improvement. And then we design the business process. This is where we implement and recommend automation or streamlining of processes. And then finally, implementation and monitoring. This is where we categorize the process improvements into incremental or radical improvements. So that happens during the business process redesign and implementation monitoring. Now let's drill down a bit. So incremental process improvement, this occurs in a series of small steps, and it might also occur in long periods of time. But no single step in the process consumes an exorbitant amount of time. So incremental process improvement should be quick and easy, and there is less risk in implementation. Now, examples of these incremental process improvements are streamlining of order process and even implementing RPA to improve, for example, a finance process. I will talk about RPA later. On the other hand, radical process reengineering, it requires significant shift behind the fundamentals of a company's processes. So it affects practices, products, culture, norms, and other components of the organization. And the gap between the current state and the future state will be great and big in a number of ways. That's why we call it radical. And there is a transformational shift behind the company's fundamental processes. And it is often expensive, time-consuming, and risky. Examples are implementing big software packages like enterprise resource planning or ERP, human capital management or HCM, or even a customer relationship management or CRM software. Now, just to graphically show, radical process engineering will be a big step, and incremental process improvement will be small steps. Now, we implement and we recommend usually these two types of process improvements when we talk about transformation A here. So transformation A to derive quick wins. And transformation B is creating the growth engine of tomorrow. This is where we involve radical process reengineering. Now, incremental process improvement, this is where we use RPA. So RPA is now a mature in this technology, and many RPAs now involves AI. So we carry an RPA product. We make that part of our engagement. So it is used to automate high volume repeatable tasks, right? That previously humans performed. And these tasks will include queries, calculations, maintenance of records. So easy tasks that can be automated, like in customer service, accounting, financial service, healthcare, human resource, and supply chain management. And these are the areas where RPA can now be used to improve processes like email generation, email archiving, data analysis that involves periodic reporting, ERP transactions, usually if the company has an ERP, processing list and file storage, and conversion of data formats and graphics. Now, RPA now can improve a lot of the processes. So in many of our engagements, not only do we involve streamlining, but also automation. So and one of the features of of our technology is we have a process discovery feature. So process discovery is relatively new. So what this involves is we put probes inside the PCs and terminals of the employees so that we can discover processes, who the users are, who the process receiver and originators are, and then it recommends process automation. Now, this video will show you how process discovery as a technology is used in an organization.
Every day, in every enterprise, employees carry out unlimited processes that could be better executed by a virtual workforce in a fraction of the time. The challenge today is identifying all these processes with minimal effort. Cryon's Process Discovery delivers an AI-powered solution to meet this challenge. Discovery robots monitor every interaction employees have with their applications and continuously send this data to the Discovery engine to analyze and map every business process. Findings are displayed in real time on the Cryon console, which proposes automation recommendations prioritized by ROI and business results. Once a process is selected for automation, its workflow is immediately shown. By clicking any step of the process, you can see a quick view of the user action and can drill down even further for more information. Now, all you need to do is to click Automate, and Cryon Process Discovery turns recommendations into automation. The system immediately generates the automated workflow within the Cryon Studio, leaving you only fine-tuning before assigning to your virtual team. Cryon Process Discovery changes the way enterprises do RPA by reducing overhead, design, and development costs while letting Cryon's revolutionary AI engine automate with almost zero human intervention and faster than ever imagined.
All right, so that's one tool that we use in our engagements. So a process discovery software and tool. So moving to radical process engineering, this involves a significant shift behind the fundamentals of the company's processes. And these are examples, like an ERP system. It may involve an SCM, supply chain management, HRM, CRM, and MRP. Now I mentioned that these are risky, process changes. It takes longer time for implementation. So one highly publicized, process risk that really showed up was the Chicken Joy issue that we experienced in 2014. So it involved system upgrade. So they practically changed the ERP, affecting many of the processes, which affected ordering, inventory systems. That's why during 2014 we experienced shortage, a seemingly shortage of Chicken Joy. So that is the problem with radical process reengineering. It involves risk. It entails a lot of planning and methodical approach. Now, last few slides, I would like to mention that culture and people are the biggest barrier to digital transformation. And this is a great segue to our next topic, because if we even plan for it, if the people and the company, company's organization members will not accept and adapt, then it will fail. That's why we always highlight that digital transformation consider all the facets of the organization for it to be successful. Not only process, not only technology, but also organization, people, stakeholders that comprise the culture of the company. That ends my presentation, and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Sir Ray Lugtu. That was a very, nice feature of how the industry actually operates by looking at really a systems-based approach when it comes to business and process operations. And now we will proceed with our next presenter. Our next presenter is Ms. Ria Brando, who is the Asia Pacific Program Senior Manager of Medtronic. She has a solid global experience in leading business transformation programs with focus on change management experience. Ms. Brando is a globally certified change management practitioner professional with a Six Sigma Yellow Belt certification. In 2019, Ms. Brando acquired her certificate in professional change management and leadership from Cornell University in the US. For this afternoon, she will be discussing organizational change capacity, particularly focusing on change management for people. Ma'am Ria?
Yep. Thank you very much, everyone. Good afternoon to all the panel speakers today and all the professors and students of the engineering and research of the most prestigious universities of our country today. So it is my honor and privilege to share also and to add more value add from what has been discussed earlier in comparison with the technology, data, process, and now focusing on the people side of the change of the digital transformation that is that we need to apply in the organization. So for today, allow me to share my experiences as an active industry practitioner in change management, focusing on automation as well. So currently, it's been my second year journey in Medtronic, one of the leading healthcare company in the world today. But for the past, I've been part of the IT industry also, wherein we wherein we deployed and supply a lot of e-commerce and automation programs as part of the applied knowledge for all the digital transformation in the industry today. So allow me to start by saying that this is a very famous Charles Darwin quote, wherein it is not the strongest of the species that will survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. So thank you, Sir Ray, for a very good segue, because as you've mentioned earlier, on top of the processes, data, technology, the whole success of a digital transformation will not be possible without the capacity of the human to transform and be capable to adapt into change. So this has been the mantra and of the change management, to make sure that we are able to move the needle and also lead the way with a human evolution while the world is changing so fast. So allow me to share 3 things today with all of you. I wanted to just give a summary and recap. It has been shared also by Professor Chen Fu Shen and also by Professor William on where we are today on the digital transformation. I think a very good definition has been given earlier, and some of the evolving industries. Number 2 is the role of the change management and organizational change capacity, where we can actually make a huge leap and also put more value add in making sure that a digital transformation success is possible. So the role of change management is very important. And of course, some of the leading components of the digital programs that will flip the odds of the digital transformation, because as what Sir Ray mentioned earlier, majority of the transformation in the past are not very, very successful. So allow me to share from a healthcare industry, because I'm part of Medtronic. I'm very proud to be part of our leading healthcare industry who provides a lot of healthcare help with 72 million patients around the world. But just to share with all of you that I'm sure that out of the other leading pharmaceutical and other tech companies in the world, did you know that the 4 big tech companies today, such as Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and Apple, are also part of the healthcare leading R&D investments in the world right now? So even in a different variety of medical device company, pharmaceuticals, and research and development, these 4 bionic companies, as we can say, are the companies today in the healthcare and IT industry that are leading the way towards the digital revolution also for the healthcare industry today. So I would just wanted to make sure that I shared what's happening in the world today, and as what is given earlier by previous professors, you are very much aware that pandemic or COVID-19 has accelerated the change for the digital transformation in most of the industries today. And it's not just about the way we do business, but how we live in the world. And just to update that in 2021, we are now into 7.9 billion people. And thank you to Sir Chen Fu Chen, who mentioned earlier that we need more Earth to manage billion peoples on for every country if we wanted to account all the ways on how we live today. And it is also projected or forecasted to have 10 billion people by 2050. So just imagine how much a market do we need to serve across, not just for Asia Pacific, but across the world, wherein we have the biggest market, and technology needs a scalable level of services around the world. Okay, so what do we need? In terms of the digital transformation, I wanted to share, because I think majority of the 360 plus participants on the call right now are part of our academe, engineering, and research. And as part of the industry who are applying all the knowledge that I have gotten in the past. And I was also an alumni from part of the alumni of University of the Philippines 12 years ago. I think it was also a journey of automation and digital transformation for me in the past 17 years of my career. And what I wanted to focus is on the people. So in terms of the digital transformation, every company has their own vision. So regardless of your vision as a company, if you focus on the technology, e-commerce, the key component of your success is really the skill mix, the autonomy, and also the collaboration of your people internally within your organization. So it is very important for us in the Philippines if we wanted to advance the engineering and research in the future. And that's also my aspiration, to really improve the level of people and also the people in the industry of the IT here, to ensure that we embrace both digital and, of course, the advanced growth mindset on how we deal with the current business moving forward. Of course, there's also the importance of the policies that is allowed in every country on how you operate digitally. It's very, very important. And of course, the platform or the total experience of your technology, which was shared earlier, that is also comprised of the technology, data, and processes that are available and invested by each company. So allow me to focus on the culture and people. So since I'm more focused on the change management part of the whole program, relatively in a program management, one of the key mainstream for managing a successful change is to have an effective change management. This is what we need today. ProSci, which is one of the industry leading institution for all the change managers across the world today, they have defined management of change as it involves practicing a proven structured approach to anticipate, to prepare, and design a structured program across every organizational structure with minimal business disruption. So it's not very easy to run a change management program as well in parallel with all the data, technology, and process, because this deals with the behavior of your culture and the behavior of the human and employees that you work with. Every stakeholder has a different way of dealing with the change. And as you know, human nature, most of them are resistant to change. So in the industry today, 70% are failure in terms of running their change management. Regardless of all the investments and R&D today, in the experience lead by all the other consulting companies such as McKinsey and Company and other consulting, which is also Sir Ray might be familiar, 70% of this have been a failure in terms of the change management. So why? Why is this happening in the industry today? Not just in the Philippines, but in my technology, in the global experience, a lot of the programs have not fully reaped the value proposition or the benefits at the end of the program. It is because the human change readiness are not really given certain focus. Even if you deployed a certain program and invested a number of dollars, if the people or the stakeholders are not supportive, given by the capacity of your organization, it's not really gonna work out. So that's one of the most important part of the digital transformation. So in our experience, organizational change capacity is one of the most important concept that evolves, which includes a multidimensional ingredient such as human skill set and resources. Of course, part of this is the formal systems and procedures of your company and the organizational culture, values, and norms. So all of the human emotions and behavior in the company is highly influenced on how the organizational culture and mindset works. So I wanted to focus on the human skill sets and resources because it is very important or imperative for a digital success to have a highly human skill set or a group of people to be part of. And that's one of the people that we wanted to identify. And I wanted the Philippines also to ensure we accelerate the level of the skill set of the people. Either you are on a technical or in a business perspective or even in the academe. we have a sweet spot or a middle spot wherein you call it purple people. So it was a coined term by Wayne Eckerson in 2010, wherein it possessed a mix of business and technology skill people who are who can enable to excel in BI or business intelligence, and at the same time they are able to assess or provide a very good business acumen. So in the IT industry today, did you know that we are already have a 3.7 million unemployment rate in the Philippines as of last end of August? I think that was the data given by our DTF. But in IT industry, we have a numerous number of roles and job openings. And the problem for the underemployment is the skill set of the people also that we need to mix with the business. Some are highly technical, but not really business oriented or not really process oriented. So we wanted to get that sweet spot for the people wherein they get all the experiences and be possible to make sure that they can actually connect and handshake with the IT discipline so that it will create more value add with the industry and technology. So how can we achieve that, or where can we find those great people in the industry today? So I encourage the students here also, for those who wanted to join the IT, healthcare industry, and even the academe, it is very important for us to have a growth mindset. We are already on the peak of our fourth industrial revolution. Philippines should not be behind, although we have a long journey to go with a digital transformation, but it's not just the end of the line, but I think we can still see a huge opportunity for the Filipino and even for the global employees, and not just employees, even the capital ventures and the other IT people. As long as you have a growth mindset, this is very, very important. And failure in the IT industry and even in the automation progress and other digital transformation is normal. And the only opportunity for you to proceed is to continue to have a growth mindset and to continue to learn from what we have, because all the automations right now are still like learning and growing, even all the AI and all the things that are available in the market today. So the last part of my presentation is the components of how can we flip the odds from the failure of 70%, how can we make a successful 80% success rate? So I just wanted to share with you that we are partnering with multiple consulting group as well, but I handed and landed with one of the global leading Boston Group Consulting for the flipping the odds of the digital transformation, wherein they actually identify these 6 integrated components to achieve at least 80% of success for the aspired outcome when you move a digital transformation program. It can be in the IT industry, healthcare industry, or even in the engineering and manufacturing industry as well. So the number 1 is actually an integrated strategy and clear transformation goals. So once you have identified that, it is very important to have an imperative handshake of the human and also the technology to make sure that you have a very good success factor for or success measurement in your digital transformation. Number 2 is your leadership commitment from the CEO to middle management. It's very, very important that the leadership of the company is also moving the needle to find the right people who will manage the change. Number 3, deploying and managing high caliber talent. I think in the Philippines, we have a huge pool of great people who can really deliver, but it just needs to handshake with from the academe to the industry. And then number 4, we have an agile governance mindset that drives broader adoption. So we have a value adoption process as well. It's a very long process to measure your success, but this is very important that we have a governance mindset on that. And then the last that I wanted to share is also the business-led modular technology and data platform, because it's a handshake between the human readiness and technology to be able to make an imperative transformation And that will create a more success factor of all the transformation that happens, that we defined as a bionic company. So in the world today, bionic companies are successful companies such as the Amazon, Microsoft, and even the Alphabet or Google, who have achieved the highest level of potential for the human and at the same time organization and technology investments. So for that, I would like to thank you all for listening to the insights, and then we are ready for our Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Ria. That was a really insightful talk on focusing on the human side of an organization, of business operations and processes. So to moderate our Q&A session, I would like to introduce our moderator, Dr. Dante L. Silva, who is a professor at the Pua University. He will be the one leading our Q&A moderation for Open Forum. Dr. Silva.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Brian Alamani, and good afternoon to our distinguished speakers who are experts in their respective fields, and good afternoon also to our participants. I am deeply honored to be part of this forum on engineering the future through digital transformation. First and foremost, listening from our speakers made me realize that re-engineering the future is vital to everyday life. It actually shapes the world we are living in and the future we are relying on. Let us have a grassroots understanding of the different perspectives of digital transformation as presented by our speakers. Probably we could start with Dr. Chen. Dr. Chen, how are you?
Good. How are you? Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Chen, in your presentation, you discussed the 4 phases of industrial revolution. Can you possibly explain to us the role of digital transformation in industrial revolution, which is grounded on cyber physical system?
Okay. Firstly, in Germany, the Industry 4.0, they also call cyber physical system. That is on one hand, those manufacturing in the physical, in the shop floor level, they will connect, the machine can connect to each other. Then in the cyber world or in another area, they can visualize the physical movement of the factory so that they can remotely control the production system. And to me, actually, a lot of high-tech industries, such as semiconductor industry, they already realize such technology. But why for those leading countries, they want that kind of cyber physical? Because they could put the physical factory in Philippines or Taiwan, while the cyber control headquartered in West Europe or United States. So, but to us, it is more important that how can we adopt those intelligent technology or digital transformation to upgrade our industry infrastructure, just like the other speaker mentioned about the change management, as well as the technology such as Ray just mentioned, how use chat robot, etc. You can utilize those technology to help our industry. So I think this CPS is more like a needs to fulfill maybe Western countries' needs. While for us, it is more about the intelligence or smart manufacturing or productivity enhancement, etc., is more important, and how our people can utilize those technology to improve our productivity, quality, as well as our business development. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Chen, we are all looking forward for the IR 4.0. You made also mention about Industry 3.5. What do you think, Dr. Chen, the digital transformation drivers, which is primarily identical in this transition process from 3.0 to 4.0, having the 3.5 at the middle?
Okay. One of the reason I propose Industry 3.5 more like a hybrid strategy. It is not really state. We often do it like a halfway. One of the slide I mentioned earlier, because a lot of Taiwan's industry, about 98%, they are small and medium-sized enterprise. They don't have that kind of resource to upgrade their infrastructure, such as like a CPS or Industry 4.0. However, they can adopt partially those intelligent solutions just to enable their smart production so they can maintain their role in this global supply chain or manufacturing network, because you need to collaborate with your partner. So I think when I propose Industry 3.5, I think those SME or Taiwan's industry as well as Philippines industry, we should try to migrate partially and focus on flexible decision, focus on agility or the global supply chain network, rather than, of course, the fundamental infrastructure is important, but usually take longer time, need more investment. But I don't think SME, they have that kind of resource, plus they don't have talent. That is why I use that as a hybrid strategy. And you talk about digital transformation driver. I think the demand is the same globally, but how can we manage our resource inside of our country as well as individual company to migrate sustainability is important. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Chen, I think our participants would like also to know what are the digital transformation technologies that is being currently used now in Taiwan?
Okay. I think that there are two parts. One is just like Ria just mentioned, the change management. One is more about the intelligent technology, just like Ray and Professor mentioned about the big data issue. So firstly, I want to focus on the organization. I think the organizational change management, because a lot of SME in Taiwan, they are traditional industry or family business. So their decision process is more like a top-down. But the younger generation, they want social networking, they want discussion of participant. So with this AI or big data, we want to change the culture within the organization, especially for decision-making process. And so if I'm not the boss or I'm not the standard boss, how can I convince my boss? I need to use data. I need to use the analysis to convince them rather than their top-down. So this is what we are doing by using that big data or intelligence as a way to help the organizational change for decision-making process.
Exactly. Okay. Dr. Chen, it seems that digital transformation technologies are critical to digitalization.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Chen. Probably we now move on to Dr. Torres. Dr. Torres, good afternoon. Sir, good afternoon.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I could. How do you feel,
Okay.
sir? How do you feel, sir, that you are branded as the godfather of Philippine internet?
It's an informal title. It's an informal title. I don't really. I take it in fun.
Okay. Can you possibly share to us your first experience in internet connectivity and how it all started in the Philippine setting?
Oh,
Briefly.
that's perhaps too primitive, no, in relation to the topic. But 1994 March, we got connected to the internet globally. 64 kilobits per second was the speed. The cost, $10,000 a month. Can you imagine? Can you imagine for $10,000 a month, you'll have multiple gigabits already.
Okay.
But in spite of the low bandwidth, the only way to justify is to share. And that is why at the beginning of our campaign, we convinced the funders, DOST, it used to be NSDB, I think at the time, that 9 universities and research institutions will share the 64 kilobits per second. And everybody accessed that via dial-up.
Dial-up. Yeah.
Right. Okay, that's the beginning, but it allowed us to communicate not only within our country in selected institutions, but also with the rest of the world, because we could get access to the internet. But very fast, within a year, we already had a lot of change. Okay, and perhaps moving forward, the way we changed over the years, 27 years, is much slower than most countries. And so that's a dilemma we have to face. Because now digital transformation says we need to move fast, but we have to get up to that level by conquering the obstacles like bandwidth, like digital divide, solving it. Okay.
Dr. Torres, that would actually bring me to my second question. 27 years later, from PHNet, which we used to call it before, where are we now in reference of ICT ecosystem? Particularly when we talked about science and technology research.
Okay, that's a tough and big question. We are strong in terms of telecommunication services. Okay? We are claiming that we can reach more than 90% of our population via mobile. Okay? Good. What do we do with it? What do we do with it? Does it generate value? Maybe not. It is a consumer economy, and only a few organizations make money out of it. What we need to do is move towards wealth generating activities, because we need to employ people, right? And how do we employ people if we don't have money? And we want people to be more productive. How can they be productive if you have very primitive infrastructure? Okay, so we have got to make a lot of changes. What I mentioned as imperatives are networking, security, data, and applications. We have to do all of these four. And you know what? The network problem is solvable by the demand of data and applications.
That's correct.
In other words, if people say, well, we have these big organizations and small organizations making use of ICT and moving towards advanced transformation, not just converting analog data to digital data. Not just that, not manual to, kung yun lang gawin, talagang we're stuck there. We need to get wealth out of that data. And, you know, sometimes we don't appreciate it, but solving problems faster, making decisions faster, making decisions not in Metro Manila, but in the rural areas and in the LGUs, where that decision can impact the people right away. Those are the things that are missing in our society. So we have, as somebody already said, we have a long way to go. We can flip it, But you know, when you flip a coin,
bit.
flipping the coin is not done very slow. It's got to be done very fast. Diba? That's what we have to do.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Torres, for those words of wisdom. I just have one last question. If you would like to entertain one more, please.
Okay.
Yep. In your presentation a while ago, you were able to show us a clear framework, particularly when we talk about data in a life science organization. Now, do you think it is imperative, Dr. Torres, to guarantee integrity at every stage of the data life cycle?
To guarantee what?
Integrity.
Oh, okay. Well, when you say you need a data life cycle management, right?
That's right.
That's the last phrase that I mentioned. They are concerned about the things that you need to do at every step. Okay? Data capture, assuming that the data is real data, right? In science and technology, that's real data. When you captured that data, did you capture it in the right way?
That's correct.
So that you can organize it in such a way that it becomes useful very fast, right? If you don't, that data, if it's 1 week old or 1 month old, is useless because the decision you want is now, right? Look at what's happening in our COVID-19 efforts. You can probably already say that if we could speed up that data from where it is obtained to where it is being processed for problem solving and decision making, I think we could have done better problem solving and decision making. And I'm not just talking about the politicians, I'm really talking about the people who work around those politicians.
Okay, got you there. Now, my takeaway from your talk was that we need to ensure that integrity is always in place at each particular stage when we talk about data life cycle. Thank you, Dr. Torres.
You should. Okay.
Thank you. Sir Lugto, good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon. I was so impressed with your presentation. You were able to discuss clearly to us an approach to process improvement on smaller solutions that slowly but surely move the business towards success. I just would like to be clarified on how the digital transformation enabled organization to better serve its principal stakeholders in reference to enterprise transformation, which you mentioned earlier, incremental process improvement, and likewise, radical process improvement.
Can you repeat the question again, Dr. Silva? No?
Yeah.
I want to make sure I understand. No?
Okay, I just would like to be clarified, or if you could explain it further, how the digital transformation, which is the issue right now, enabled the stakeholders in reference to enterprise transformation, incremental, and radical process improvement.
How digital transformation enables the stakeholders. No?
That's correct.
Yes. So enable, you mean skill building? Is that
make them a part of the organization itself? That would bring me to Miss Brando's discussion a little later.
Yeah, all right. Well, I mentioned that all the components should be working hand in hand. So I showed the framework, the box framework where you have process, technology, organization, stakeholders, and people. So when pursuing digital transformation, so we always take all of these into consideration at the same time, never in unison, never alone, but always at the same time. So when we, for example, when we talk about process improvement, may it be radical or incremental, we always take into account the impact of technology or the impact of process into technology. When we talk about organization changes, we talk about the impact of process change to the organization or the impact of any organization change to the process. So they always work hand in hand. So when we talk about, when we pursue a digital transformation project, so, we engage in a massive enterprise-wide enablement. So, for example, Dr. Silva, we have a number of engagements with financial services in the Philippines, spanning several years, because it entails a lot of change. So, we start with, of course, the CEO, the board members, and then moving down to the executives, and then moving down to the staff and employees. So similar to what Ms. Brando mentioned, so it entails involving people, enabling them, building skills, managing change, in order for digital transformation to be successful. And process change is one of the difficult components of digital transformation, because many organizations want to change a process. They will think, my solution is technology. All right, so or they will implement changes in the process, without considering changes in the organization. So that's why many transformation projects fail, because it doesn't consider all the components.
That is correct. Yeah, Sir Lugto, it was very clear on my end when we talk about enterprise transformation. But I'm a little bit confused. What would make it different from organization that is utilizing of the very simple continuous process improvement model, or we simply call it the 4-step quality assurance method? Remember the plan, do, check, act cycle?
Yeah, it is similar in that respect. So the continuous improvement process covers also organization. It covers technology. It also covers stakeholder and people. But I guess the difference here is that we do this in the context of digital transformation. Right. So I showed the the end-to-end process. We start with revisiting vision, mission, identifying new customers, and then identifying strategies and tactics. Now let's consider that the drivers of digital transformation are external. Changes in your customers, changes in your competition, and changes in the environment. Those are the drivers. And then we move into enterprise transformation because of those drivers.
The drivers are technology based.
Yeah, well, not only technology based, but like in many of our engagements, the outcome of the strategies and tactics, although they involve technology, not all of them are technology based. Right? So it may involve simple change in behavior, for example, training of employees, enabling of employees, or streamlining of processes that may not require technology. But many tactics that we implement now and consider are all primarily technology based.
Yeah, that's exactly agree with you, and that would make it different from the Kaizen principle. Yes. Am I right?
That is correct. So because the outcome of digital transformation are primarily strategy based, right. Technology based. So unlike Kaizen or the continuous improvement, it is process focused.
Okay, thank you, Sir Lugto. Ma'am Ria, hello.
Yes, hi, Dr.
Hello,
Silva.
good afternoon. It's a rainy afternoon for all of us. Yes. Your discussion on flipping the odds of digital transformation made me realize one thing, that the digital transformation can define careers as well as companies. Would you like to comment on that?
Yes. Well, just from a context of that can define a career, that's the first level of your point, right, Dr. Silva?
That's right.
Flipping the odds of digital transformation, that it includes the 6 factors that I shared, is definitely can really define a person based on his or her professional skill set and the level of his commitment, and also the functionality of what can you offer or value add you can offer in an organization to be able to drive a change. That's correct. And you can actually cross to multiple industries as long as you possess that particular skill set. So it can be on an IT or business intelligence and coupled with your business acumen. And you're right, it can define your career and you can move from one industry to another as long as you possess that.
That's good.
And then if your the second part is, can it define the
Companies as well.
companies as well? Definitely, because the people that comprise the company will definitely give a more good reputation also on how the organization works, and it actually comprises of the culture, because you will really identify a company with a great working culture because of the people that is part of it. So now the level of the job employment are through networking. As you know, Dr. Silva,
Precisely.
so most of the skill sets right now are based on your reputation of what you can offer, and if you're easy to work with, even if you're very good in one of your forte, that would really define you, and can crossbreed with other industries as well.
Oh, good to hear that. Good to hear that. Ma'am Ria, probably the fundamental question on the minds of all business leaders today is this question: how can I ensure that my organization is among the successful transformers?
Okay. How can you ensure, if you're a CEO or an owner of a company? I think Sir Ray knows very well. Every company has their own definition of success or measurement of success. So as a change management practitioner, I will always have two ways to define. It can be your qualitative key performance indicator, and also your qualitative, or the type of people that is part of your organization.
Mhm.
So if your measurement of success is based on the data, the revenue, the sales, which is mostly your market share, your level of numbers that you deliver within the global company or industry, I think that's one of the key indicator of your success.
That's
So
true.
your market share, your definitely the market indicator is how much is your stock price, and of course the revenue and the nature of your income, based on the industry level today. But on the other side, it's also the type of people that is part of your company, because it always boils down in other companies, like what are the type of people who works in that company as well. And it's easy
Okay,
to
good.
Google also. If you just go to Glassdoor, you will see the feedback of each employee for every company already.
Easier that way, huh?
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
So
and
really the reputation of a company, even in LinkedIn today, it's very easy to ask somebody on how is the culture in that company? Is it really like a great working place or a toxic environment as well? So it varies.
Yeah. So, Ma'am Ria, in reference to the last essential success factor that you identified, I guess that is business-led modular technology and data platform. And this actually enabled to secure scalable performance, rapid change deployment, and likewise seamless ecosystem integration. What do you think, Ma'am Ria, is the best way to assess whether the organization now is prepared with respect to technology and likewise data?
Well, for me and from my experience, because I work with some of the top IT companies in Silicon Valley before as well, and in the region in Singapore. So the measurement of success for me, it depends on the industry, but on an IT perspective, definitely your capacity to invest in an R&D and innovation is one of the indicator. So if you're a company who has a very good investment of your research and development, such as like the one that I mentioned, like Google, AI, even the Alphabet and Tesla, they are the leading R&D companies that has a very huge portfolio for R&D investments. Even for my company today, Medtronic, because we are leading medical device, we have a huge $1 billion to support our patients in the future. And another part of the measurement of success for me is really on the side of the human side, because aside from the technology, you should have a highly caliber people who works in your company at the end of the day, because your technology and investment will not be enabled if the people are really not as good, coupled with the integrity and of course the good culture that was mentioned by Professor William Torres as well.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. Probably we could sum it up, Ma'am Ria, into two keywords: bionic approach, or taking a bionic approach, blending human and likewise technical capabilities and keep the momentum going.
You're perfect. Yeah, that's a very good summary. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ma'am Ria. Probably my last question will be addressed to the four speakers this afternoon. My question is, how do you think pandemic has changed the world's digital transformation? That's first. And what do you think is next for digital transformation in a post-COVID scenario when we talk about humanizing intelligent technologies as discussed by Dr. Chen, data lifecycle in DX as discussed by Dr. Torres, enterprise transformation as discussed by Sir Lugdo, and organizational capacity change as discussed by Ma'am Ria in reference to re-engineering the future. Ma'am Ria, would you like to start the ball rolling?
Sure. Yeah, for my from my perspective today, coming from a healthcare industry, so I could say that pandemic actually impacts the lives not just for the patients but on how we deal with the data of our patients in the medical industry today. So it was accelerated on a phase that we cannot imagine before. We are expecting like a 5-year to 8-year transformation, but because of COVID-19, a hybrid work environment actually translates to make it faster for us to really move the needle. And definitely we have accelerated a huge investment on how we deal with the data. So as what is mentioned earlier also by Professor William Torres, there's a big data today. And for us in the medical industry, we have a huge number of data, and because of COVID-19, but COVID-19 is not the top leading fatal cause of death. As you know, there's also like a number of heart problem, cancer, diabetes, but it's the same diseases of big data that we identified, and we actually are compelled to move faster, which is mentioned also earlier, that the program velocity of our digital transformation has been accelerated. So we should be thinking bold, move with speed, and at the same time make sure that at the end of the day we realize the value of all the things of why we need to do this digital transformation.
And that is also one way of gaining a competitive advantage, Ma'am Ria.
Correct. You have to be
That's
fast.
correct.
That's right. The speed
Okay.
and the velocity is very important.
Important at this point in time. Thank you, Ma'am
Correct.
Ria. Probably we could now move on to Sir Lugdo. Sir Ray, your floor, please.
Yes, great question, Dr. Silva. So before the pandemic, the Philippines was lagging when it comes to digital transformation. So, we did a survey in my previous organization. So the Philippines was lagging, and the top two reasons why the Philippines was lagging is, number one, we lack the skills necessary to implement transformation. And then number two, the board members do not have the mindset to implement digital transformation. Now, when the pandemic came, almost everyone jumped into the bandwagon, and it was a knee-jerk reaction. It was a knee-jerk reaction, and we can see this. When we can see this in many of our interactions with consumer applications. For example, like one grocery chain implemented an e-commerce platform. You order, but someone calls you. A human calls you when the inventory is not enough. So the digital transformation that many organizations implemented during the pandemic was knee-jerk. It was not end-to-end. So the future, and what we're seeing this now, the transformation that will happen will be to to maximize and make better the customer experience. It's going to be focusing on the digital customer experience, making sure that digital touch points, when we use an app, when we interact with a physical branch, it has to be seamless across digital and non-digital points.
Yeah, this is more organizations beginning to discover the other values of technology.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. May we have Dr. Torres, sir? Your floor, please. Dr. Torres?
May I start by saying that the first word in the phrase we've been using maybe more than 100 times already, digital transformation, is digital. Okay? We must remember that unless you go digital, you may not be able to do the things you want your people and other resources to help you make the change, and make the change very fast. I did not emphasize too much the concept of digital ecosystem. I think when the pandemic struck us, we were lost because we were not ready with the data and the information we need to do to make the change that we have to do. And when our people got scattered because only a few could work in office and many will work at home, we were forced to think, how do we still get these people to work? And unless you go digital, you cannot make that happen. But the ecosystems approach is, to me, the key idea on how to overcome the pandemic and to move beyond the pandemic. Because it's a formula which brings people together. Remember the definition, interdependent enterprises, people and things. When you bring them together, you bear upon not one issue at a time, not two issues at a time, but several issues at a time. Let it be jobs, let it be investment, let it be skills training, and skills training. Look at our education. What do we do? How can we change education so that it responds to the fact that a lot will have to be virtual? In the future, it will not get lost. Face-to-face will still continue, but perhaps virtual will also progress, because it is really the fastest way to get people together. Okay?
That's great.
Collaboration is the thing. And then mobilizing resources, whether it is in your organization or outside, and then sharing resources, which is in the cloud. How can you lower the cost of doing all these changes unless you use the technology? How can you generate more wealth? Because that's what we need. Because our economy is faltering, and we need to have new engines for making this
Right.
machine di ba, move faster.
Dr. Torres, it seems that
The thing about digital transformation is it is in the minds of everybody, right? But it is when how do you do it? How do you do it? My message is, do it, but be conscious that you have to go digital. Because if you don't, you won't transform digitally. Thank you.
more organizations, more on modernizing their capabilities. Thank you, Dr. Torres. Our last speaker, Sir Chen, Dr. Chen.
Yes. Yeah. I think the digital technology driven or empowered transformation should be the key issue, especially for those, like I say, the SMEs as well as traditional industry, but enable to facilitate such transformation driven by digital technology. Some change will be needed. Organizational change, the education change, just like Professor Torres just mentioned, as well as the new business model, just raise companies, etc. Then the migration will be successfully, and the benefit for such migration will help the whole society, not just limited company that can adopt this new technology or new business model. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Chen. Dr. Brian, may I now proceed to the synthesis part?
Yes, sir. Apo.
Okay, thank you. So for the synthesis, Dr. Chen, in his presentation, clearly pointed out that leading nations have re-emphasized smart manufacturing and resilient supply chains via national manufacturing strategies such as Industry 4.0 for leadership in restructuring global manufacturing networks via humanizing intelligent technologies. Furthermore, he underscored that the paradigm of global manufacturing networks is shifting, in which the increasing adoption of artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, data analytics, and robotics have empowered manufacturing intelligence and smart production. While facing new challenges raised by pandemics such as COVID-19, most of emerging countries may not be able to directly migrate for Industry 4.0. Alternatively, Industry 3.5 is proposed by Dr. Chen as a hybrid strategy to call for disruptive innovations to humanize the needs for industrial migration and manage the potentially disruptive socioeconomic impacts of such a transition while considering sustainability. According to Dr. Torres, once executives adopt an ecosystem mindset to evaluate their existing business models and envision future platform opportunities, the biggest challenge is execution, just as in other parts to digital transformation. It takes an ambiguous approach to optimize the present business model while inventing new business that harness data, AI, automation, the cloud, new skills, and new relationship with stakeholders. Digital ecosystems may seem futuristic, but as companies with multi-billion market valuations such as Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Uber, Ping An, and Naspers, these ecosystems are in play today. Thus, executives in every company need to create their digital ecosystem strategy now, not tomorrow. Those that do could find a new digital market in which they need to play to be far bigger than the industries in which they've operated for years. Beyond simply appreciating the need for such data, a strategy effort can answer key questions about how proprietary data fits into the strategy and business models of an organization. Improvement doesn't have to come only from big sweeping changes. While it is sometimes necessary to tackle big problems using big projects, according to Mr. Lugto, this is not always the case. Incremental improvement is an approach to process improvement where you focus efforts on smaller solutions that slowly but surely move the business toward success. These ideas are typically low cost and low risk and are implemented throughout the entire organization. Although the results may not produce a very dramatic effects immediately, they will be long-lasting. And the accumulation of numerous small improvements is often as powerful or even more powerful than attempts at making huge leaps. To achieve dramatic improvement in productivity, cycle times, and quality process, re-engineering is suggested by Mr. Lugto that involves the radical redesign of core business processes. In response to pressure to deliver short-term results, leaders and organizations often neglect building their capability to be productive. Ms. Brando's presentation provided us a description of how to overcome the purely reactive focus so that the organization can survive and prosper over the longer term, focusing on organizational change capacity. This capability or organizational capacity for change contains 8 different dimensions. 4 of the dimensions would focus on critical human capital and 4 focus on social infrastructure. The remainder of Ms. Brando's presentation elaborates on what the leader's role in creating organizational capacity for change, focuses on each of its 8 dimensions in more depth, and provides practical ideas for diagnosing and enhancing the organizational capacity for change. So in conclusion, digital transformations are an imperative as today's leading organizations need to build a bionic capabilities in order to harness the potential of disruptive technologies and integrate them into new processes, organizational models, and ways of working. This necessity has been accelerated by the pandemic. Our speakers showed us the importance of companies' plan to accelerate their company's digital transformation. They also presented overwhelming evidences that successful digital transformations drive performance and competitive advantage, propel companies towards becoming bionic. Our speakers underscored that technology is important, but the people dimension, organization, operating model, re-engineering processes, and culture is usually the determining factor in digital transformation. Organizational inertia from deeply rooted behavior is big impediment. Failure should not be an option, and yet it is the most common result. The consequences in terms of investments of money, organizational effort, and elapsed time are massive. Digital laggards fall behind in customer engagement, processes efficiency, innovation, and employing proprietary data strategies. In contrast, companies that are successful in mastering digital technologies, establishing a digital mindset, and implementing digital ways of working can reach a new rhythm of continuous micro-level incremental improvement. Digital transformation, paradoxically, is not a binary state, but one of ongoing innovation as new waves of disruptive technologies are released to the market. Unsuccessful companies will find it extremely hard to leverage these advances, while digital organization will be innovating faster and pulling further away from digital laggards, heading for that bionic future. So thank you and a pleasant good afternoon to everyone.
Thank you very much, Dr. Silva. It was a really excellent synthesis for the entire series of talks that we have. It was a nice one, and we believe everyone was able to learn a lot from this one. Now, to close our session, may we call on the Deputy Director of the Department of Science and Technology, Science and Education Institute, Engineer Albert Marino. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the members of the Engineering Research and Development for Technology, or ERDT Consortium, for another successful conference. I just can imagine how challenging this is given the situation. So thank you for keeping the momentum going from now. To the facilitators, the notable speakers who shared their expertise, and the participants, thank you on behalf of the Department of Science and Technology, Science Education Institute for your contribution to making the 9th ERDT Congress a success. Your mere presence here implies that you all care about what we can do for our country using science, technology, and innovations. And we greatly appreciate that. This year's Congress bannered the theme, Engineering the Future Through Digital Transformation. If you can look back to the moment the country implemented the community quarantine, I feel like all of us, from the experts down to our youngest child, have had a rapid dive into digital transformation. For one, the lack of physical mobility required us to find way to continue doing our business. The government and the private sector turned to online work. Communication and the plethora of transactions via the internet exploded even more. The education landscape changed dramatically and somewhat favored those who are prepared to connect online. There's been a lot of good and a lot of bad, mostly since most of us were unprepared. We may have learned the hard way, but we all realize the great need to pivot to this new setting. It's very fitting, hence, that the collection of experts gathered here today so talk about topics that we need to hear. We talked about technology, data, processes, and organization. All these factors have its place in our pursuit of global transformation. In an article by one of our speakers, Dr. Reynaldo Lucto Jr., published in the Business World earlier this year, he talked about a couple of surveys that reveal that Filipino enterprises are welcoming the adoption of digital technology to curb through this pandemic. We see this as somewhat a good sign for our industries, but as Dr. Lucto said, this response has been more of a reaction rather than a strategic action. We hope to use everything we've learned now to be more proactive, utilize proper foresight, and make it more towards our industry's favor. I bet our education sector will have a similar response given the challenges posed by the modular system. Interactions, despite virtual, are still interactions that will promote valuable connections and ultimately learnings. Thus, in a time when we can see having a face-to-face classes feasible in the future, we hope we can provide a way to digitally connect a good percentage of our schools, especially in the rural areas. It's a huge challenge that us in the government, with the help of the private sector and our good communities, all have to respond. After all, if we're looking long-term, we have to ensure that our workforce is well nurtured. At this ERDT Congress, we hope that we engage all of you to pursue collaboration in engineering our future. While we miss the actual sharing of experiences, poster presentation, side talks with the colleagues and others, we hope this online Congress serve its purpose. We also hope that your interaction with one another will extend beyond this Congress. We thank everyone who has committed themselves to the goals of the science community. Our work continues. Let's all answer to the call of our people. Congratulations to all of us. Maraming salamat po at mabuhay tayong lahat.
Maraming salamat po. Thank you very much, Engineer Albert. It's been a really nice session for this afternoon, and thank you also for closing it. Before we end, I would just like to make some few announcements and reminders. The poster session will be, we have the poster session on September 10th, which will be running from 1 p.m. onwards, and then parallel sessions on September 15th, which will start at 2 p.m. Opportunities and challenges in digital transformation. There are two sessions. Session A, digital infrastructure. Session B, digital literacy and inclusivity in data privacy. On the 17th of September, 2 p.m. onwards, you will have sectoral transformations with two sessions. First one is government, business, and academe. The second one is production and manufacturing. For further details, you can check the Facebook page of ERDT, fb.com/ERDT Consortium. So I hope you attend those sessions, and also would like to take this opportunity to invite our panelists and members of the ERDT steering committee to please join us for a photo op para po for this session. Okay. Let me know if we're okay. Our